So in case you're more comfortable with Microsoft Excel, I want to show you how to do those different pieces I showed in GeoGebra, also with Microsoft Excel. You just need to choose one of the programs, and whichever you like better, you can go with. Now with Excel, I have heard of some difficulties with the graphs will appear a little differently, and I'll talk about that when I actually graph them. And then also some issues with, it's not really the full 5-number summary, but specifically with the first quartile and third quartile values. Sometimes how Excel calculates the quartiles is different. I think the function that I found fixes this, but if you have any issues with plugging in and getting different values, or you're unsure, just talk to me. These values that come out from Excel are very close to the true values, and I can determine that. Where it might cause issues is if you use this with MyOpenMath, where it definitely wants a specific answer, and how it's calculating the quartiles can sometimes be different. But just reach out if you have any issues with that, but I'll still show you how to find all of these pieces in here. So first thing we need to do is go to Microsoft Excel, and something we're going to load in, and this will be helpful throughout the course. We'll be doing some other things, and I'll keep referring back to Microsoft Excel as along with GeoGebra, in case you like one better than the other. We need something called the Data Analysis Tool Pack. So here's some step-by-step instructions for how to do this. You should only have to do it once, and then it should save within Excel and be there every time you open it up. But these are the steps if you ever need to repeat the process. So what we're going to do is go to Excel, and we're going to go to File, and then all the way down to Options at the bottom left here. And then with all of these options, like general formulas, at the second to last one is Addins, right above Trust Center. So you want to select Addins. And then with what shows up on the right-hand side here, go to the very bottom. You'll see Manage Excel Addins. Just click the button Go right next to it. So it'll have these 4 options here. You can see yours won't be clicked yet. Mine is because I've already loaded this in. But basically, you just want to click the box next to the top 2, so Analysis Tool Pack and Analysis Tool Pack VBA. So select those 2 and press OK. And then what should happen is at the top where there are the different tabs, so Insert, Draw, Page Layout, things like that, data should be showing up. So if we go to the Data tab, there are all these options here, but what we want is all the way on the right-hand side for Data Analysis. If I go ahead and open that up, even though we don't have any data put in, this has so many functions. It's really amazing. Correlation is something that we'll look at later in the term. Descriptive Statistics we'll look at today. You'll see there's a histogram button. What else will we use? Regression could be helpful. And then some of these tests down here. Lots of different things in there. So we'll visit a few of those. All right, so what we want to do is input our data. And what I need to do, okay, needed to get the data up. What we're going to do is input the data, and what we're also going to do is include a title. A lot of these functions in Excel will draw on the title and kind of automatically label things for you, which can be nice for organization. So we're going to go to that fictional exam scores. So I'm just going to title it exam scores. So column A, row 1 has the title there, and then I'm just going to type in the data. So 31, 62, 65, 70, 76, 81, 82, 82, 87, 88, 89, 94, and 5, 98, 100. And then it's always good to double check that everything was typed in correctly, which I think we're good. Okay, first thing, let's look at making the box plot. So what you want to do first is highlight the data, and you can include the title along with it. And then what we're going to do is go to the Insert tab. So the box plot isn't going to use the data analysis tool. So we'll go to Insert, and then in the middle here, there are all these options for charts. We want to choose this one. It's kind of in the middle. It looks like an all blue histogram. The title of it is Insert Statistic Chart. So if we click on that, it'll have a drop-down menu for histograms, which those take a lot of editing. Do not use those. I will show you a better way with our data analysis tool for getting histograms out. But the box and whisker plot works great. So if we could click on the box and whisker plot, it'll have our data. It actually didn't bring our title in, so where it says chart title, you can edit that. You just click on it, and if you wanted to change that to exam scores, you can. If you leave it as chart name, I don't take off points for that or anything. Something you'll notice is that this is a vertical box plot. When showing work by hand, I typically draw horizontal. They're the same thing. They'll still have their outlier, and then your data, it's all separated exactly the same. So that is our box plot. So if you want to use that for the written assignment, you can copy and paste that in rather than drawing by hand, either way, or if you want to draw by hand, but use this to double check, that's a great method too. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and delete the box plot. Let's go to histogram. So with histogram, we are going to use that data analysis tool. So before we go there, though, we need to define the bins. So what I'm going to put here is just put bin range, or you can put that same title of exam scores if you want. And what I'm going to do is label the bins that I want to use. So with this one, we're going to go 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. And you know, I actually go one beyond on each side. So I'm actually going to go 20 and 110 just for a little cushion around it. Okay, so we have that all set up. So what these are, those starting values on the histogram, kind of like how I labeled the number line of these values to start each bin. Okay, once you have that typed up in a separate column, then what we're going to do is go to Data, go to Data Analysis, and we're going to select Histogram. So highlight Histogram, press OK. Input range. So if you want to click inside of this box, the little marker is there. And what I'm going to do is highlight the data, and I'm going to include the title with it. So while that's open there, I'm just going to go over to the data and highlight it all. So you can see it grabbed values there. It says like A1 through A16. It's telling you where that data is. For bin range, I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to click in that box there. Then I'm going to go over and grab bin range. So I'm going to grab the title, which is kind of important here because we're going to be including labels. So that title bin range, and then highlight all of those bin starting values. Okay, so once those are selected, where it says labeled, you want to check the box next to labels. This is just telling you that you did highlight, like I highlighted that title exam scores, I highlighted that title bin range, so that's all in there. What you also want to click is down here at the bottom is chart output. That's going to show you the actual graph. So we want to select the box next to chart output. You can ignore Pareto and cumulative percentage. We're not going to be using this. This output options, you can choose new worksheet means it's just going to open up a separate page, which is fine. If you wanted to do output range, you could select a spot on the page that you're already working. So if you click in that box and then just select a location, it'll output on the same page you're working on, whichever you prefer. You can play around with that. Okay, so we selected our data for input range. We selected our bin data for the bin range. Check labels, check chart output, press OK, and it'll kind of separate your bin range data and show you the frequencies. And this is a case where the graph, as best as it's trying, And as much as this is better than the other histograms in that insert function, there's some things to fix here. So like if you go to bin range 40, so values 40 to 50, what we should know from this data is that should be empty, but it's showing a frequency of 1. So that data value of 31, yeah, it's jumping over there. But what I like about this is that you can edit it. So with a small data set like this isn't too bad. And really, overall, this graph is really close to what we want to see. We're still seeing those important characteristics of a gap and things like that. But it's not quite working how it should be. So what you can do is edit the frequency list, though, being like, oh, that 31 should actually be in that bin for 30, and that 40 should be 0. If you edit this frequency list, it's automatically editing the graph just to the right of it. So now by changing 30 to having a frequency of 1 and 40 to a frequency of 0, now I have that bar in the correct spot for 30 and 40 is empty. So you can go through and edit, like I know 60 should have 2 data values, 70 should have 2, let's see, 80 should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 data values, 90 should have 3, and 100 should have 1. So that makes it match what we drew by hand in our class. The histogram in this will have gaps between the bars, but that really is fine. As much as I emphasize it for drawing it by hand, with this, we're just trying to get a close visual to what we're doing. So with this, just double check those frequencies coming through. Typically, I mean, this data set's fairly small. For a written assignment, we'll have a slightly larger data set. But if you're going to use Excel for the histogram, just kind of do a quick double check that the frequency is distributing how it should. So that's the histogram. I'm going to go ahead and delete that out. For our last piece, we're going to do the descriptive statistics, which is really what we're focused on in this course. So we'll be using this quite a bit. So what we're going to do is go back to data and open up data analysis again. And we're going to select descriptive statistics. And we're going to open that up. Okay, input range, we're going to select our data again. So again, click in the box first, and then go over to the data and highlight it. And we're going to include that label of exam scores. This is grouped by columns since we typed it all into a single column. If you happen to write it horizontally across the row, then just switch to grouped by rows. I'm going to select the box for labels in first row since I did include that title of exam scores. And then down below here, you don't need to click anything else except for summary statistics. We want to make sure that we check that box next to summary statistics so that everything shows up. And again, you can have it show up on a separate page with this new worksheet, or you can do an output range by selecting somewhere on that same page for it to show up. And we select OK, and we get a bunch of information. So what we want to use from this list is we want to use the value for mean. In fact, I'll go through and highlight these. So mean we're interested in, median. So you can ignore standard error for now. That might come up later. Then standard deviation. We want to use that. That is the sample standard deviation. It won't give you the population standard deviation. Sample variance is just the square of that number, so but we won't really be analyzing variance all that much. Ignore kurtosis, ignore skewness, ignore range. Minimum and maximum will be helpful for your 5-number summary. And then you can ignore sum, and then count, that's your sample size. So that's where, if you're unsure if you input all the data, you can check the count to make sure you included everything if they told you like how many were in the sample. So compared to GeoGebra, the only thing that's missing here is Q1 and Q3. In terms of our 5-number summary, we have minimum, median, and maximum. We're missing Q1 and Q3. So what we need to do is we need to use a function within Excel. So what you want to do, and I'm just going to add it to this list at the bottom. So below count, I'm just going to go Q1 and Q3. to add it on. So next to those, I need Excel to do the calculation for me. So I included this wording in the file that I gave you for the lecture notes. So we're going to type in, you start with an equal sign that in Excel tells you to calculate something, and we're going to type in quartile, so Q-U-A-R-T-I-L-E, and then we need the .exe. That should be what handles this correctly. It should be. And then we're going to start parentheses, and then it wants our data. So what we're going to do is go and highlight our data by hand. With this, you can exclude the title in that first row. So I'm going to start at 31 and just highlight down. So it grabs this range from A2 to A16 for me. And then we're going to go comma, and then it wants to know which quartile we're working with, and we want the first quartile. And then close parentheses, hit enter, and there's our first quartile. For Q3, same exact thing, so equals quartile.exe, start parentheses, highlight your data, comma, and then we want the third quartile, so then you just type a 3, close the parentheses, hit enter, and there's our third quartile. So with the quartiles, sometimes it's easier to find by hand than doing that, but that should work out.